Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm showing you the much requested how to make Ghetto Electro like Partiboi69. As usual, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, all of that from this video. It's available right at the top of the description on my Bandcamp, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there, because it's already available. And yeah, here we go. We're at 150 BPM, pretty fast, but it works well for this sort of like upbeat electro feel like this. The first sound we have here is this 808, which sounds like this. So here's the bass line. You can see it's pretty simple. It's basically just walking up G, A sharp, and then C. So if we're thinking of this like in a G minor scale, it would just be the root note, the ninth, minor third, and then the fourth. Really simple. It's just kind of walking up and then back down. You know, that's part of the sound, is like having that just simple kind of groovy bass line like this. For the sound with this one, this is actually made with operators. So this is the kind of bass you hear in a lot of these tracks. I was trying to recreate like an 808 kick. So what I have here is just a sine wave, and then it's going into this pitch envelope. So here's without the pitch envelope. That's just like your standard sine wave bass. And then the pitch envelope is what adds that sort of like click and like attack to it. And yeah, so that's how it works. That's pretty much the gist of like making any 808 kick. It's just a sine wave and then a little bit of a pitch envelope to kind of shape it. And then this just works really well, basically as a sub bass in here. But just to give us that really fat, powerful grooving going underneath that more juicy bass layer that I'm going to show you in a second. And then the only effect we have on there is just a bit of EQ, just to cut out a little bit of space for the kick. And yeah, and then we have that juicy bass afterwards, which sounds like this. So yeah, this is playing the same bass line. This is that sort of like just big fat resonance style bass that you hear in a lot of Partiboi tracks. And so the way you make a sound like this is it's basically just a super resonant low pass filter, and then you can kind of put whichever waveforms you want into it. Here what I did is I went for a saw wave and then a square wave, and the saw wave is an octave down. So I did this because this usually creates the fattest sound. When you have like the saw wave and the square wave working together, it's just so much harmonic content that you're getting, so it's going to be a lot fatter. And then I just have that going into a low pass filter. Like I said, with the super resonant or super high resonance envelope is set like that. And yeah, if you're having a hard time getting the sound, I definitely recommend try switching from a saw wave. Like if you're using just a saw wave or just a square wave and you can't get the sound quite there, try using both at the same time and try spreading them across octaves, because it really is going to make a big difference in terms of the fatness. And then with this one, we just have a little bit of a high pass to make a bit of room for that 808 bass. And then I have these going through a bit of drum bus together. So this is the processing that does like the last little bit of kind of, you know, giving these some fatness and some fullness in the track. Here is without this. And then with it. So yeah, without this, these basses are just too dry to really get this kind of like I guess what you would call a more like old school sort of sound like you hear in a lot of these tracks. You really need to use some kind of saturation on each layer to really like make it have that fatness and that warmth to it. And that's what this drum bus is doing here, while also just kind of gluing together the sub and the main bass, so that like overall it's just going to be a lot stronger bass. After that we have the lead, which sounds like this. So this is the pattern. It plays the same thing both times. It's just the second time here it's an octave down. So all this is it's just going up from A to F, A to F, and then to E. You know, it's just a super simple, almost like I was going for like a theme. You know, a little like synth riff that somebody can remember when they hear this track. And kind of like hum along to. So, for the sound with this one, it's made with analog. This is just 2 saw waves, detuned a little bit. We got the amp envelope set like that, and then I have a ton of vibrato. That's pretty important for getting the kind of sound. Like if I turn this off, yeah, it sounds super trancey, but once you turn this up, you get more of that old school sort of electro feel with it. I also have a bit of unison on there, and then we have a bit of chorus, which is just giving this a bit more like width and making it kind of bigger. Then we have some reverb, which is giving it space. And then finally, I have this drum bus on here just to do a little bit of extra sort of like warmth at the end of the chain. Here's without it. And then with it. So you can hear the difference there. Again, this is just that thing that's going to give it that extra sort of analog warmth at the end of the chain. And yeah, that's it for the lead. Then we have the kick. So the way this kick is made is, it's actually very similar to how you would make a hard techno kick. What I did is I took a 909 kick. I took this kick. There's the original kick. And then I distorted it with Ableton's pedal, which you can hear kind of brings out more of that like warm low end. And then I added some drum bus to give it the last push to really stand out like and punch through the mix like this. So yeah, this is how a lot of the kicks in the style of music are made. It's just using a simple drum machine sound like this. Like you could use an 808 kick, a 909 kick, maybe even like a Lindrum or a 707 kick, something like that. But you're just going to take that and then just try to make it super fat using a bit of distortion and saturation and stuff like that. And yeah, so I recommend using these guitar pedal simulators like this. Like this one is meant to be like an overdrive pedal on a guitar. It's really good for these drum machine sounds, and typically it's going to give you the most authentic sort of like analog sound if you're really going for that old school warm kind of fat kick like this, like you want in the style of music. And then after that we have the snare. So this one's really simple. It's mostly just about the type of sound you're choosing, just like this big fat punchy kind of snare that's gonna kind of hit off of the kick. Like I kind of think of it as like call and response. Like the kick and the snare have to be pretty equal in terms of like how hard they hit. Cause like let's say we go in here and I'll just grab like a small snare, like you know maybe something. Let's get like an 808 snare in here. Which like this is a good 808 snare. This would work in another track, but if you listen, you can see how, like, even if it hits pretty hard, if the snare isn't equal to how hard the kick is hitting, it's just not going to work as well. When we have these two equal, it feels a lot stronger in the, like, not just in the drums, but the whole track. So yeah, it's really just about the sample you're selecting. And then I've just got this one going through some drum bus here. I've got the damp turned down on the drum bus, which actually works really well for this because it kind of makes it darker and almost as if it's being low pass, but it's like a very, very subtle low pass. And it works really well because this is typically what a lot of that like analog gear sounds like. Like a lot of people say that it kind of cuts out the high end on sounds, but it's not quite the same as if you just take a low pass filter. So that's why I love this damp knob, is because you can really get that kind of like dampened, like old school analog lo-fi type of sound like this. Next we have these vocals.
Cool, get it, hot, get it, cool, get it, hot, get it, cool, get it, hot, get it, cool, get it, hot, get it.
So I was trying to make the type of vocals that you hear in these tracks. There's a lot of different ways you can make these vocal samples. You can record it yourself. You know, you could just record yourself saying like a whole little phrase. You could do,
cool, get it.
Yeah, you can find a sample from like an old acapella, maybe something from an old sample CD. This is just this like really old one. I think it was from the 90s actually, to be honest. And I just took these samples.
Cool, get it, hot, get it, cool, get it, hot.
So it's just saying, here, I'll play the original.
Cool, get it, hot, get it.
So I just took those and then I pitched them down a bunch to give it that more like dark sort of sound. You can see they're all at -7. And then there it is. You just put those kind of in a sequence.
Cool, get it, hot, get it, cool, get it, hot, get it.
And it keeps it really simple. I recommend just using as few words as possible because typically if it's more words, it's just more information for people's brains to remember. It's kind of like with the lead. It's like, you know, we could have a bunch of different notes in this lead. I can make it jump all across the scale, but if you really want to make something that's memorable, you got to make it simple. And that's also with these vocals. Like, just having this be cool, get it hot, get it, like that is just going to be infinitely catchier than if you had like a whole long, like, you know, say 4-bar phrase that you wanted it to say. Which can work, but if you're going for something really catchy like this, you just want something simple. And then I just have a bit of drum bus and a bit of a high pass filter on this one to process it. So here's without these.
Cool, get it hot, get it cool, get it hot.
And then with them. So you can hear not a whole lot. You know, this one, pitching it down really does most of the like effect to it. These vocals are usually pretty dry sounding in the actual track. You just got to do something like this to kind of color it.
Get it cool, get it hot, get it.
And then the high pass just makes sure it's not going to get in the way of the low end. And then the final thing here would be the hi-hats. So these are just these two, like we have this one, more of an open hi-hat, and then this closed hi-hat. You know, very much just like simple drum machine sounds. That's all you really need to work with to make this work really well. And on the open hi-hat, I just have a bit of saturation. And on the closed hi-hat, I high-passed it a little. Because if I turn this off, you can hear there was a little bit of stuff in there that I just wanted to get rid of. And then I have those in a group together with just a little bit of processing. So here's with nothing. And then with it. So you can see the drum bus is fattening these up and giving them a bit more texture, as well as kind of darkening them a little bit. I have the damper knob turned down, so it does kind of cut off some of that high end, which really makes a big difference. I think if you're trying to get the more lo-fi feeling in your tracks, definitely like cutting off a very small amount of high end on your actual hi-hats is probably one of the best ways to do that. Like, I'll show you what I mean. If I turn up this damp knob and then turn it down, you can see how much of a difference that makes in terms of like just making the track work and selling that sort of lo-fi effect. So I've got that, and then we just have the high pass filter just to cut out the nose. And yeah, so that is going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file and samples and MIDI presets, all of that from this video. It's available right at the top of the description on my Bandcamp. It's a great way to support me if you guys are enjoying these videos and learning a lot. It's a great way to keep going so I can keep making more and more of these videos for you guys, keep teaching you more stuff. And as always, it's available on my Patreon as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for all the support, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.